of staff at the Department of Public Service, Tony Velcino, and time, and Ben Kelly. And Tony's going to give you a presentation, and they're available to answer any questions you have to give you an idea of what REV is all about. Then at 7 o'clock, we will start the formal phase of the evening, which is the public statement hearing. That's an officially transcribed hearing, which all the comments that are made will be recorded. That won't be a question and answer, which is an opportunity for you to stand up and let us know what you're thinking about, and we'll put that all on the record. So if you are interested in speaking at that, you can fill out the request card at the table when you walk in. You can do that at any time during the evening. I'm joined tonight by Commissioner Greg Sayer of the Public Service Commission, and we expect to be joined by Diane Berman as well, so we'll have two commissioners here as well. So unless there's any questions up front, we are going to go ahead and get started with the public information portion of the meeting. Tony?
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you again to the library and the City of Buffalo for having us here. And certainly thanks to the folks who are here to participate, hopefully learn about what we're doing, and definitely provide us some feedback for our consideration, for the Commission's consideration. Today, I'm going to run through some slides here on the PowerPoint about what REV is, about what we hope to gain from REV, and then we'll do a question and answer period. But if you have questions during my presentation, feel free to raise your hand, and if I see you, I will call on you and do my best to answer your question. If you can turn down the lights just a little bit, so hopefully we can see that better. All right. So to begin with, I'll tell you a little bit about the Public Service Commission, which is the decision-making body of the agency. There's also the Department of Public Service, which is the staff arm for the Commission, and we support the Commission in its endeavors. The primary mission is to provide access, affordable, safe, secure, reliable access to utilities. We cover electric, gas, steam, telecommunications, and water service, and we do all that while protecting the environment. The Department and the Commission also stimulate energy markets by encouraging and supporting innovation in technology, innovation in services, and now through REV, innovation in rate structures and the regulatory structure with which we use to regulate utilities. Reforming the energy vision. It's a groundbreaking, comprehensive approach from the state to develop a clean, more reliable, safe, and more resilient system. Resiliency refers to the ability of the system to bounce back if it is damaged, either through a storm or something else, and also to limit whatever damage may take place to as few as possible customers. REV includes groundbreaking regulatory reform, which we'll discuss a little bit today. It also includes evolution of the state-sponsored programs for promoting clean energy and energy efficiency. We have EAPS and RPS, the Energy Efficiency Portfolio Standard and the Renewable Portfolio Standard, and we're transitioning those programs into the Clean Energy Fund, which is a proposal by NYSERDA, which is currently in front of the Commission for consideration. The Commission directed NYSERDA to file a supplement to that proposal with some more details and straightening out or clarifying some of their budget proposals. And that we expect to be submitted within the next few weeks or months. There's New York Sun, which is a governor-initiated program to support solar PV, small scale, behind the meter, in residences and small commercial facilities. And then there's the New York Green Bank, which is the largest green bank in the country. And the intent of the Green Bank is to use ratepayer funds that were generated and leverage those to increase private investment into the green energy economy in New York and to improve the infrastructure, again, to promote greener, cleaner and more accessible energy. Any questions so far?
How do you get access to that bank?
Like opening a savings account?
Who does that money get distributed to, and what is the process to obtain it?
The question is, how does the Green Bank money or fund get distributed, and how do you get access to the fund? Is that correct?
That's correct.
The Green Bank is part of NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. And recently they issued requests for proposals and are currently considering those. I think it's an ongoing process, so you could submit proposals, I believe, at any time, but there's definitely more information on their website, which you can access either through NYSERDA's website, or if you just search Google or any other search engine. The New York Green Bank, they do have their own site.
NYSERDA.gov?
I believe so.
NYSERDA.gov, I believe.
Okay, and how, you said it's the biggest one, what is the capital?
Right now, the plan is for $1 billion capitalization.
And it's already received about 250 million of that. Sorry, right, up on stage.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. And you have how much already in there?
It's already about, I believe, 250 million in that general area right now.
So we're about 25% of where we expect to be by.
They've currently submitted to the commission their request to get up to to get the full funding up to the billion. I believe if the commission approves the request, that will happen over the next 4 to 5 years, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
And just to briefly speak to what kind of projects they consider, what they look for are to work with private financial institutions generally, or other public financial institutions for very kind of large-scale projects, which may be composed of lots of small customer projects. So it could, for example, be a big project which is going to be lots of solar loads to individuals is something they've discussed. So it's something that kind of looking for large-scale things that then can end up with project funding going out to small-scale individuals or businesses.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Customer experience today with your electric utility. You obtain electricity from them. You hear from them once a month, maybe once every other month when they send you a bill. And that's about it for the most part. Electricity and information tends to flow in one direction from the utility to the customer. There's very little interaction, again, except for the monthly bill. And this is just a cute little video. I'm not sure how cute it is, but it's intended to demonstrate the grid of tomorrow, which is much more distributed. There are a larger number of resources spread out at the edge of the grid, if you will, as opposed to central generation, which is carried long distances through transmission and distribution.
60 seconds per song.
So the rest of this video is a commercial for this company. I'm not sure exactly what they do, so I'm going to scroll through it. And talk a little bit more about the industry status today. We got a question, go ahead.
Does NYSERDA have a plan, does the Public Service Commission have a plan for phasing out fossil fuels and nuclear? Is that their goal?
One of the objectives is to increase dramatically the percentage of electricity produced by non-fossil fuels. So we don't have a specific plan to phase out fossil fuels, but we do have a specific, we're developing a specific plan to increase the green energy, which, will displace, is intended to displace fossil fuels.
Do you consider nuclear green?
The commission has not answered that question.
Currently, though, none of the funds that NYSERDA operates, which those are the main ways that green energy currently get funding from the state of New York. None of those include nuclear right now. nuclear doesn't receive any funding directed at green energy right now.
There's nothing in the proposal or currently under consideration that I'm aware of that would provide support through ratepayer funds or just through the commission organized programs for nuclear power. All right, so today's average electricity bills are going up. Aging infrastructure is going to require substantial additional investment just to maintain the capabilities it has today. And recent extreme weather events and an increasing frequency of extreme weather has highlighted the importance of a reliable and resilient grid. And another feature of today's system is central generation facilities are increasingly dependent on natural gas. So when the price of natural gas goes up, it has more of an impact on the price of electricity if it's a higher percentage of what's being used to generate the electricity than if we had more fuel diversity and more resource diversity, which is, again, a major objective of the REV proceeding. Again, status of the industry today is peak demand is growing 4 times faster than overall electricity demand, and the grid is built to meet that peak demand. We don't want brownouts or blackouts in those hot summer days when everybody's using a lot of electricity, so the system is built basically to withstand that large amount of usage. The rest of the year, it's not being used as much, but it still has to be built and it still has to be paid for. So when you have a very high peak demand, but the rest of the year, or the rest of the time the grid is in operation, you have an inefficient system, or low grid efficiency. They say our distribution system, I believe, is about 30 to 40% efficient. That means we're only using its full capacity about 30% of the time. That peak demand only occurs a few hours each year. So we have to maintain and pay for all these facilities and infrastructure to meet an occurrence that only happens a few hours a year. Flattening that energy use just gives an idea of how important peak demand is and how important shrinking the peak, or at least preventing it from growing 4 times faster than overall demand. If we could flatten the demand or decrease the usage in the 100 peak hours, we'd save the state $1.2 billion. It's only 100 hours the whole year. Any questions on peak demand? Yes?
I guess I was aware that an issue before, so is the plan to educate people so that we're using less energy?
Public outreach and education is certainly part of the overall strategy. As we get to the next slide, the importance of that peak. Right now, if you shut your washing machine off during the peak, or if you shut it off when it's not on peak, your bill will not impact your bill. If you use less, your bill goes down. If you use it at a different time, most residential customers, the vast majority of residential customers, are not on what's called time of use rates. So the impact to the individual customer to shift load off of peak is no more impact than it would be to shift it into peak. We hope to change that. So folks will be educated, whether it's through a program like this, when we're out talking to folks, or whether it's their utility that comes and says, listen, if you change the way you use your electricity by shifting it to a different time of day, you'll be able to save this much, or the impact would be this. Or if you decide that you absolutely have to wash your clothes during peak, you'll end up paying more. All right, the status quo, our regulatory framework, the way we regulate the utilities currently, is based on history. It's old-fashioned, and it does not promote innovation, and relies extremely heavily on traditional business models traditional infrastructure. It doesn't incentivize utilities or many customers to adopt different ways of using energy or technology because, again, you don't see the full benefit of lowering your individual usage during the peak because it's not set up that way. We hope to change that. Some of the opportunities that have led to REV, have led to this proceeding, are increasing opportunities for customers. Some of it's technology, some of it's simply awareness, some of it's environmental regulations that have all led to this. But there are, because of technology and because of this proceeding and folks who are interested in energy, more opportunities. Storage of electricity is not quite as popular as solar PV, but it is starting to catch on, and there's some interesting technologies being developed. Solar PV is, thanks in large part to New York Sun, doing extremely well in New York. The prices have come down dramatically throughout the world. That's led to a lot of people putting panels up on their roof. Energy efficiency and other distributed resources and household management systems are all becoming more popular and more available in the marketplace, which makes individual customers' ability to manage how they use electricity, to know how they use electricity, to understand the different parts of their house that are consuming electricity at any given moment, makes it easier and more accessible.
I'll just add a word to that because, at this point, many people, we've gotten used to using our computers or using phones to run a lot of parts of our lives. And yet the one part of our life which we can't control at all is our relationship with utilities, except in very limited ways. And so we're hoping that some of that technology, which has really transformed modern life so much, you think about your use of the telephone, if you're my age or even younger than me, but older than, let's say, 20, you remember how we used to use telephones and how we use telephones today. It's completely different. And yet in the electric business, we're still really in the same kind of paradigm that we were with the old rotary dial phone. So we need to make some leaps, and I think there's a lot of advantages, including more control over how we make our energy decisions. We need more information to make those decisions. And also to be able to have resources like solar power and other renewables and energy efficiency available on a much wider basis than we are now.
And the last bullet point here is, in the future, these distributed resources that now you're just generally a customer of the utility, you may actually be providing services to the grid, whether it's just the energy that your solar panels are producing, or if there's voltage support or other, we call them ancillary services that the grid needs that generally today are provided by these centralized power plants, centralized generation plants. They can be provided by more distributed resources. And if you're a customer that has a facility that can provide those resources to the grid, you may very well be being compensated or paid when you provide those to the grid. And when the grid or the system or the market properly recognizes the value of those systems, it facilitates their installation, and it facilitates and promotes more clean energy than we would have otherwise. We talked about peak load. One of the ways of managing peak load is a peak demand reduction or demand reduction program. Currently, thousands of New York City residents have air conditioners that can be cycled off by the utility during peak and emergency events. It causes, if you were there when it happened, you'd hear the air conditioner go off. But other than that, most folks don't even notice. They cycle them back on, so there's not a lot of heating in the apartment, the condo where these things are. And it enables the utility to manage that peak and to flatten it out, so it provides significant cost savings. The program in New York City has been very successful, so the Commission has directed the other utilities in the state to develop similar programs for demand reduction, whether or not they'll be strictly with air conditioners or other types of programs that's yet to be seen, but we will be seeing that.
I think it's important to note that these are all voluntary programs and that also the customers are compensated for participating. So I believe for this program it's a annual payment, but there are some other types of programs where it might be a payment for each time that it shuts off.
And those payments, again, they're trying to recognize the value that these controllable thermostats or controllable air conditioners provide to the grid, and that value is specifically, in this case, peak production. More opportunities for distributed energy to reduce purchases. If you're generating electricity, you don't have to buy as much of it, generally speaking. And if you generate more than you need, you may be able to push that back on the grid and be compensated for it based on its value, again, to the grid. Distributed resources are also expected to increase the reliability and the resiliency of the grid.
During Hurricane Sandy in New York in October of 2012, Lower Manhattan below 39th Street was dark for quite a few days, 9 days, not all of it, but most of it. But there were a few facilities that kept working, and they became what people called centers of refuge during the storm. So one of them was a community center on the Lower East Side called Solar One, which had been a solar demonstration project. So they had lights on and computers functioning during the day, not so much at night, although I think they had some storage, so they had some power at night. And the others were some of the hospitals in Lower Manhattan that had combined heat and power systems. So they had little gas generating facilities in their hospitals. So they had both heat because it was cold in October, and they had electricity because those gas plants were generating electricity. So that really sparked people's imaginations about the possible advantages of a more decentralized system. So instead of a major climate change impact catastrophe taking out 800,000 people for over a week, maybe it could be 1,000 people in one area, and if we had some of these more standalone facilities dotted around the system, and that gave rise to the sense that this could contribute to the resiliency of the system in a situation like that. So I think that gave rise to some experimentation by Con Edison in New York City, and a lot of experimentation by communities in the city looking for ways to protect their systems and their communities against future storms.
And one of the technologies or setups, I guess, if you will, that is important and the Commission is looking at very closely, and the state is looking at generally, is microgrids, which are smaller grids that are generally connected to the grid, but they can disconnect to the grid in cases of emergency and operate fully, either partially function emergency lights and other emergency equipment because they have their own generation within that microgrid area. NYU is in New York City is a microgrid. And again, that because they can separate from the grid, when the grid's down, they may be able to function. But at the same time, they're connected to the grid and being able to exchange energy and ancillary services when everything's running. So the proposed market structure for REV, we just talked about how the industry is today. Where we would like to take it is to integrate these new electric resources in a very highly coordinated grid that ensures reliability and efficiency in many of the ways we just talked about. It enables participation by companies and individual customers to provide solar, energy storage, demand reduction, energy efficiency, home energy management, and other resources in a distributed manner. And then customers can get paid either for the generation of electricity that other customer uses or other services that they could provide for the grid, similar to the way electric generators get today. A new platform will be necessary to integrate all of these resources, distributed resources, in a time-sensitive, timely manner. And the current staff proposal that the Commission is considering proposes that the utilities act as this platform provider. Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate on that last point? The utilities will act as the platform provider. What does that mean?
In its fully built out construction, the utilities own the distribution lines today. They'll operate the system and coordinate all the different resources that would be independently owned, either through customers or independent company on that grid. So they would basically manage the transactions that take place in the system. They would continue to be responsible for maintaining reliable and safe service. So they would have to maintain the grid like they do now. And they would also do system planning, which they do now, but we are trying to encourage them to do it in a more comprehensive, with a longer-term view of how they build the system so it's a more efficient system and will be capable of integrating these distributed resources.
So how do they make money? What do their shareholders say about how do we make money? We want more dividends.
I haven't talked to the shareholders, but I'm sure you're quoting them or paraphrasing what they're saying fairly accurately. We haven't figured out all the details of that, to be honest. What we're trying to do, what we need to do, is align the utilities' interest in making money. They may have other interests, but they're a corporation, so that is their primary interest. We want them to make money when they meet our objectives, and to make less money or not to make money when they do things, when they behave in a way that does not meet our objectives. So our objectives are to increase system efficiency. So they may, one example that's actually occurring now is construction hasn't started. It's the Brooklyn Queens Demand Management Project. Con Edison, in its planning process, determined that they needed to build a substation to handle increasing load in the load pocket in Brooklyn and Queens. So they proposed to build I think $1 billion substation. The Department of Public Service staff took a look at it and said, maybe there's a better way to do this, and pushed the company back and said, come up with a way to meet this demand or this need in a way that is not just installing traditional infrastructure like a substation. So they went back, after, a little bit of resistance. They went back and came up and have proposed a comprehensive plan to meet the needs. Part of it is met through lowering demand through energy efficiency, and part of it is met by increasing distributed local generation, clean generation, so they are able to put off the construction of that substation. And normally they would put the substation in and they'd earn a return on their investment in that substation. So in their alternate proposal, they said, well, we still need to get paid. And they do have a few proposals out there that the Commission is considering, but they're essentially performance-based payments. If they are able to actually obtain the energy efficiency and the local distributed generation that they propose, they will get compensated for that. It'll be lower. It's expected to be lower than their compensation would have been for the $1 billion substation. Thank you. Even if they take home the same profit, if you will, the cost to customers would be lower because they're not paying for the $1 billion substation and the rate of return for the utility. They're paying for energy efficiency, which is generally much cheaper than substations or a large generation facility, and they're paying. And they may be partially paying for some of the distributed generation and other resources that go into meeting this need. But again, the cost overall for the system is expected to be considerably lower. And the utilities will still get paid.
Well, what are they giving up?
What are they giving up?
Are different companies coming in to provide these new types of services, or is it all still controlled by Con Ed?
Let me try this.
Okay.
There was a filing about a year ago.
Gender stereotype. Utilities collectively filed a really interesting study about a year ago, in which they put out their analysis of the issues that were facing the industry. And they were very similar to the ones that we're talking about tonight. One is that a lot of large businesses and commercial enterprises and industrial enterprises in New York have already left their system because they found ways to generate electricity themselves and bypass the conventional generation system, distribution system. That's not an easy choice for a residential customer, but it's a pretty easy choice if you have a large factory or a big technical campus or something like that. So they're beginning to lose a lot of their most profitable customers or biggest customers to just technological progress. I won't say that it's the same as what the telecommunications companies face, because it's a very different industry, but there's an analogy there somewhere. So that's one problem. Another problem is what Tony referred to, which is, the Public Service Commission has been around for 100 years. The utilities have been around in one form or another also for 100 years in New York. We have a lot of very aging infrastructure that needs to be repaired and replaced. That's hugely expensive. And we need to keep pace with technological change and information technology. And we have new rules and laws, some from the federal government, some from the states, that place more environmental requirements on utilities and on fossil fuel generators. So all of these things combined have put the utility industry in a tough spot. And I'm not going to speak for them. They have filed many papers, and you can read them on our website. But we're all trying to solve that problem. And obviously it's in the interest of people of New York to have a healthy, flourishing grid and utility system. But we're looking to other sources of value that technology has created and that also will enable customers to have some more choice than they have in the past.
I just wanted to briefly speak to that. Part of your question might have been, will the utility own the distributed generation energy efficiency, and what?
In that example, in the Con Ed example where they proposed $1 billion substation and apparently withdrew that proposal and had something else that will make them the same amount of money, but
it may not make them quite the same amount of money, but we'll still make them some money. But what the Commission actually issued an order in December where they said that they want the vast majority of the actual energy efficiency and distributed generation resources to not be owned by the utility, to be owned by independent individuals, corporations, businesses, schools, and whoever wants to propose installing them. They said that the Con Edison can own and install certain storage because there are certain types of storage that gets connected directly to their grid that really doesn't make sense for anybody else to install. But that beyond that, the only way they'd accept Con Ed owning anything is if they come back to the Commission and demonstrate that they couldn't get enough interest from other people. And we're hopeful that that won't happen. And certainly if it does, the Commission and staff will look very closely to make sure that they really made a very, very strong effort. But we're hopeful they've already gotten a lot of interest, and we're hopeful it won't be necessary.
And that's the type of model, when we were talking about the platform earlier, we don't expect the utility to own the majority of these resources. They own the distribution lines that connect them all together and will coordinate the activities that happen in these resources. They're owned by other folks, whether it's just energy efficiency measures that somebody puts in their house, or whether it's the solar panel or some other type of generation. That's not to say the utilities won't own anything other than the wires. Some of that is under consideration, whether or not they can own generation in the REV proceeding. But that shifting away from them owning a lot. They already do not own the generation. So we're not looking to get them back into large-scale generation in that industry.
I just want to say this is one of the really controversial issues in this case, and the commission has not decided it yet. So if you have an opinion on it, here's a good chance to put your opinion on the record. But it's a highly contested issue, and what we're describing are really this proposal of staff, or in the case of the Brooklyn project, there was a decision as to that project only, but overall, this is definitely an open issue. So watch the website, see what happens.
Come to squad, participate, let us know your thoughts. There's also a new marketplace or web portal that with platform that's envisioned that'll bring customers and providers of new products and services together. It'll also be an educational place where people can learn about the new products that are available and what they may do for them within the regulatory framework as we develop it. It'll facilitate understanding and identification of products that meet customers' needs. I'm not sure if I highlighted it enough. This is a very customer-centric approach that we're trying to take in this proceeding. We talk about solar PV and storage and particular technologies, but the Commission's not interested in picking winners or losers or particular business models. What they want is the customers to have the marketplace to be flourishing enough for the customers to have choice and to basically dictate what's there by either choosing it, buying it, or not. A little bit of the procedure that's going on now. In the REV proceeding, we have track 1 and track 2. Track 1 is considering the utilities role in the distributed system platform. Like Eleanor said, is a contested issue. There are some other issues being considered in track 1. In large part, it's about how are we going to, what role the utilities play, how do we facilitate installation of more resources to get this system working more robustly and get the marketplace working more efficiently and get the system working more efficiently. Track 2 will specifically look at rate design and other considerations to work out the devil of details that need to be worked out, to figure out exactly how the utilities will be compensated, and other participants in the market and how they'll be compensated for what they did, or charged for what they take off the system. Other Public Service Commission proceedings that are going in tandem or parallel with the REV proceeding is the Clean Energy Fund proceeding. We talked about that a little earlier. NYSERDA has a proposal for a Clean Energy Fund that's out there. Commission just started a proceeding to assess the low-income programs that exist today, how they can be made better, what best practices are out there, which of those best practices should be applied in New York, and how do we make sure that those low-income customers are being treated fairly and justly and are getting the utility service and energy services that they need. One aspect of that, although it's certainly not limited to low income, is community choice aggregation, which is a concept basically where a community, usually at the municipal level, will decide how they want to manage their energy use. It may be just hiring one energy provider so they can get a bulk discount because they're all taking energy from that provider. Or it can also involve a more comprehensive plan that includes either community-owned or either individual customer-owned generation or other resources within that community choice area that all work together, again, to give that community what they want. It'll be more local decisions about what kind of energy system they want locally, how they want to interact with the energy system beyond the boundaries of their municipality. That's what community choice is about. Any questions on any of those proceedings? Yes?
How does that community choice aggregation option differ than, say, the village's or 8, they have their own energy system that, you know, they sell energy to their residents.
The municipal electric company?
Yes. How's that different?
Municipal electric company is similar to a shareholder-owned electric company. They have different shareholders and different interests, but they provide power and they distribute it on their system. There's laws that apply to those municipalities, and they have many of them receive power from NYPA, the New York Power Authority. And are there, is there legislation that allows municipal? I think it's probably could become municipal zoning.
So any municipality could already choose to become a municipal utility, but it's a very costly process, and depending on what power sources are available, it could be very beneficial or it could not be very beneficial at all, and it can also be very costly. As I said, it requires them to generally buy the wires from the local company if they already own them. Community choice aggregation is kind of a more moderate step where the power is still delivered by the utility, so there'll still be a relationship with National Grid or whatever utility, and instead of the municipality usually doesn't, it may generate some of its own power from renewable resources, but generally will also still purchase power from independent generators.
But they'll purchase it as a block, right?
Right. They'll purchase it at a block, which often allows them to get a bulk discount, and also may allow them to purchase a greener portfolio or a more local portfolio in some cases.
And with the community choice aggregation, there's lots of different models. There's some out there already. There's a Cape Light Compact, there's in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and there's others across the country. And then some of them share common features, but many of them are very different because the local community decided what they wanted to be part of their plan. Many of the early ones anyways, just went out and got more or less a bulk agreement with the energy service provider to provide the commodity electricity, and they got a discount off of that than if it was purchased by individual customers. Others have really done a much more, are planning to do a much more comprehensive system that incorporates generation and incorporates their land use planning and long-term planning for their municipality to build the energy system that local community wants for themselves. Wow, we made it to the end of the slide this early.
Take a break.
This slide just provides information, which is also on the information sheet available at the desk outside, on how to submit your comments. We will be taking oral comments, and if you have written comments that you want to turn in today, we'll take them. But if you want to submit comments at a later date, you're welcome to, either by the internet, the old-fashioned mail, or you can call them in. So, any more questions? Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank you for providing this forum. I actually sat through the earlier session. It was so riveting.
Did I contradict myself at all?
Not at all.
All right.
I found it interesting, and really kind of moved to this whole arena here. I often, and I see that public education is a part of educating the public, but I always hear about solar, for that, and wind energy. Very little extent we heard earlier geothermal. What I hadn't heard about, and very briefly, I had the opportunity to take a tour of the Buffalo wastewater treatment plant last year. Not only, I had no idea, you know, the flush the toilet, you forget about it. But not only was I impressed with how they managed the waste, but I was really impressed of their energy generation. I don't know about energy conservation and reduction, but I left leaving there thinking, boy, here's a little power